Welcome back to Cowboy Postgame coverage of Oklahoma State's 81-77 victory against Arkansas this afternoon. Pretty impressive win, right? Okay, I'll start. I called you Cade. Pretty impressive performance, right, Cade? You did pretty good.
Yeah, that was great.
Okay, here we go. Welcome back to the Cowboy Postgame coverage. Oklahoma State defeated Arkansas this afternoon, 81-77. Pretty impressive performance, right, Chris?
Yeah, it was pretty good. It's another quadrant one win in the books for the Cowboys, and if they keep hitting the Big 12, they're gonna keep winning some games. They're gonna rack up some more, and those are the wins that really mean something more when it comes to March and seeding and all that. Because let's be real, Baylor's probably gonna win the Big 12 tournament, so they're gonna get the auto bid into the NCAA.
Yep.
So after that, it all comes down to who's got the better wins, and that's gonna determine where you're seated at and if you make it into the tournament come March.
Yep, and as of right now, in the bracketology by Joe Lenardi, the most recent one from yesterday, Oklahoma State is a 7 seed in the tournament, and Arkansas would be an 11. So, I mean, it's a win against what is projected to be an NCAA tournament team right now, and Oklahoma State's well on their way to being in that tournament as long as the NCAA Board of Appeals operates. But story I feel like from early on, Cade Cunningham, he's back, but he didn't start. Right? He didn't start. He came off the bench about 4 minutes in. What'd you think of that?
Yeah, pretty impressive 6 Man of the Year candidate, Cade Cunningham.
No kidding.
He had a great game. Cade. It looked like he almost didn't miss a game. If you didn't know that he'd missed 2 games, you wouldn't have been able to tell once he got into the rhythm of things. This game, he's 21 points. He took over there at the end after Arkansas went on that 5-0 run. Arkansas went on that 5-0 run, opened up a 5-point lead, and then all of a sudden Cade Cunningham just did Cade Cunningham things, and Oklahoma State ended up winning by 4. So, he hit that step back jumper at the end, and it was only fitting that he got the final steal to seal the deal at the end of the game.
Felt very Cade Cunningham-esque, didn't it? Kind of slow start, letting himself get the feel of the game, get into the flow. And then he just, at the snap of the fingers, he just goes, and it's just takeover time. And everyone in the arena, everyone who's watching the game, everyone who's followed Oklahoma State and Cade Cunningham knows exactly when it's starting to happen. And, I mean, it happened right when you mentioned it, right when Arkansas got that 5-point lead with probably, around 5 minutes ago?
Something like that.
And,
yeah, pretty late.
That was right when it happened. But, I mean, another guy that I think that we need to talk about, once again, Caleb Boone. I mean, double-double, 16 points, 12 rebounds. He almost had a double-double in the first half. I mean, he's really coming into his own right now, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah, he's killing it. He's kind of getting tired of that being talked about, like being too small for a big man in the Big 12, and he's making people pay. He went head-to-head against a 7'3" guy in Vanover today, and
that was one of the tallest men I've ever seen in person.
He outdueled him by a lot. Caleb Boone was by far the better center in this matchup, and yeah, he's been killing it the last couple of days. Back-to-back double-doubles. He's becoming a regular talking point on this post-game recap show.
Yeah.
And, if he keeps playing like this, he's gonna keep being a normal talking point because he's deserved it. He made 16 – so up until, midway through the second half, he had made 16 straight field goals dating back 2 games ago. So, he was killing. He didn't miss his shot until one got blocked there in the second half, and 8 of 11 today, 16 points. He's definitely holding down that center position.
And a lot of people aren't talking about the fact that, a lot of people don't know that he was struggling there a few weeks ago, and that in their interviews, I think it was just before the Kansas State game, he was talking about how he was struggling with some mental things and just not focusing on the right things, prioritizing things that shouldn't be prioritizing, just kind of getting in his own head a little bit. I mean, Coach Boyne's talked about him as being he just said it just a few minutes ago in the interview. He mentioned that Caleb wants to please everyone around him. He wants approval. And I think that he was just kind of getting in his own head a little bit. But I mean, here we are 4 or 5 games later, and he's been close to, if not hit the double-double mark, I think 2 or 3 straight games, or 3 out of 4, somewhere. He's been really good.
Yeah, Caleb Boone is he's really coming into his own. And
who else is coming into their own? And Moncrief.
Yeah. And
I mean,
Yeah,
yes, but
no, I'm kidding. But yeah, M.A. Moncrief he's been killer the last couple games too. 11 points, 6 boards today. He had back-to-back double doubles coming into the game. Didn't quite get there today, but man, he's been coming into his own the last few games since he's been in the starting lineup.
biggest thing that I think is such a huge benefit for this team going down the stretch once you get to the big games, get to the Big 12 tournament, get to hopefully, fingers crossed, NCAA tournament. If there's someone or someones who are not on their game, there are going to be 2 or 3 other guys that step it up. And I mean, so it's not just going to be one person. Most likely, it's not going to be just Cade who's having to carry the load because, I mean, you've had games where Caleb has had a bad game. You've had Caleb and Rondell have a bad game, but then you have Avery and MA have good games, and then vice versa, and just mix match. You know what I mean? Like Rondell and Bryce Williams did not play very well today. Bryce Williams didn't. He only shot the ball 4 times, had 6 points. Rondell went 1 for 5 behind the arc and had 7 points. But I mean, it didn't really matter when Avery had 13, and the guys that we just mentioned did what they did. So there's always going to be someone, or more than likely someone's on the team every game that are going to step up and carry the load if other guys can.
Right. You know, that's what makes this team so dangerous too. You know, is the depth and the depth. You know, you mentioned Bryce Williams not playing too well. You know, 2 of 4, 6 points. You know, that's not the game that Mike Boyne would want from Williams, and he said that he didn't shy away from mentioning that in the post game conference. But you know, other guys stepped up. And Rondell, he didn't have the offensive game that he had last game, but he was clutch on the defensive end. And he had probably the biggest offensive rebound of the game when he chased it down and threw it, and it led to that Cade step back jumper. So, you know, the depth of this team is insane, and it's just going to get better. And especially with Fair and Flavors, you know, getting back to healthy, and Cade's healthy now, and yeah, I have a question though. So Cade Cunningham obviously came off the bench. We talked about that already.
Yeah.
Look at the starting lineup though. Cade's one of these guys. I think all six of them deserve to be in the starting lineup.
Right. I think the hard part. I feel like you need to have MA and Caleb in the lineup because that's 2 bigs, and that'll help you with size, that'll help you with rebounding, that'll help you with just overall play in the paint. I feel like neither of those 2 guys can come out, and I feel like Ice probably can't come out either because he's the leader, he's the guy who's been around the longest. Even though when his stat sheet is not flashy, he does other things.
He was still so good, so important to this team today.
Absolutely. I mean, he only had 7 points, but he fills out the stat sheet. He has 4 rebounds, 5 assists. He makes good passes, gets back on defense, communication, just stuff that a leader does. So I feel like he can't come out. So then it comes down to Avery Anderson or Bryce Williams, and at that point, between Avery and Bryce, I feel like you'd probably I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's a good problem to have, but of the 2, I would probably say to take out Bryce Williams as of right now because Avery Anderson has been playing his best basketball right now in the last couple of games, and he's just an overall all-around athlete. I mean, Bryce Williams is too, but I if I were to do it, I would probably, I'd probably have Bryce come off the bench as the 6th man, but he would still get considerable minutes. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. No.
Like, I mean, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There were 7 players that got 21 plus minutes.
Yeah,
so it's doable to split the time and get everyone involved.
Yeah, all these guys are going to play considerable minutes. It's just which 5 are going to roll out there. And I mean, before the COVID shutdown, you know, there were a mixed match of different starting lineups all throughout these games, and I think that's going to be, you know, more of what's to come with this team. And you know, I think that this lineup could be tossed and turned any different way, and they're going to figure out a way to come out and compete in these games.
It certainly seems like we have found, I mean, injuries or not, that we found the core 7 of guys who are going to carry the load. You've got your 5 starters, whichever combination you want it to be of the 6 guys we just talked about. And then you also have Rondell Walker, who made some big plays down the stretch defensively, even though he struggled a little bit shooting wise today. Had some steals, got in the way of passing windows, just disrupt. He's always so disruptive on defense, and he's a guy that if you're in a close game, you're in a one possession game in the final minute, you want him in because you know that he's going to be disruptive on the defensive end. So I'd say that Coach Boynton has found his core 7. I mean, would it be a core 8 or 9 if there wasn't as some of the injuries that we're having right now? Like, would Chris Harris be in there if he was healthy? Probably. Would Donovan Williams be? I don't know. But so yeah, going forward, I think that there's that group of 7 is going to be pretty good for Oklahoma State.
Yeah. That's all I had to talk about.
So quick before we go, let's talk about what's up next. Oklahoma State with a chance to avenge their loss to TCU that was in the conference opener. So they're traveling to Fort Worth now, and they're going to take on TCU on Wednesday night. And then after that is a big one, trying to also avenge their loss to Texas here in Stillwater next Saturday. Those are the two upcoming, and 2 great opportunities to, as I said, avenge 2 losses that happened earlier in conference play.
Oh yeah, 100%. This TCU game is really big. You know, that loss was debilitating almost. You know, you're up 8, 2 minutes to go. There's no excuse to lose that game, and they did, and you have to avenge that, and I think they're going to go down there, and I think that loss is still fresh in their heads.
I agree. I mean, the TCU loss and the West Virginia loss are the 2 that we've had of the 4 where it's like, okay, those ones are probably the ones that shouldn't have happened. The Texas loss on the road is understandable, you know what I mean? And
Texas is a great team, and so are the other teams, obviously. But those
Texas loss is understandable. The Baylor loss, yeah.
Oh yeah, the Baylor loss is obviously understandable.
But yeah, two good chances to avenge losses. Then you've got Kansas State, Iowa State, and then as we highlighted before, a brutal 4-game stretch here in late February with Baylor on the road, Texas Tech at home, and then back-to-back with OU. That's going to be scary, especially with what OU did and has been doing. I mean, I think they've won 3 straight against 3 straight games against top 10 teams, I believe. Yeah, they beat Alabama today by 5, who's number 9. They beat Texas by 1 in their last game. Then they beat number 9 Kansas in their game before that. So Oklahoma has won 3 straight games. All of them are against top 10 teams.
Yeah, and I don't want to dive too much into this, but with all due respect to OU, this Alabama win, huge. Alabama's the hottest team in the country, and despite their loss, they still are. They've won 10 in a row dating back to however long 10 games ago was. And,
yeah.
They still are the hottest team in the country. They're still a great team. But OU's other 2 wins. A Kansas team who is about to lose its 4th straight.
I know, Kansas, that's a story. How are they still I don't know.
And then a Texas team who's missing 3 key players. So OU is a really good basketball team.
That'll be a fun one. That's really the biggest thing. That's going to be
Bellum is going to be a barn burner, and it's going to be fun. And it might be one of those series where the home team wins both games. Just 1-1 and move on and get out of the stadium. Get out. I think it's one of those, if both these teams can come away healthy, you're good. If both of these teams can escape those 2 games healthy and unscathed with 2 good games,
right,
I think that's all you can ask for.
I would agree. But yeah, so that's what's coming up next for the Cowboys with TCU and then Texas and then all the stuff that we just talked about. But it'll be interesting to see if this team can continue to pick up steam going down the stretch. They certainly have the firepower for it, and it looks like the young guys are starting to get into their own here and know how to play close games down the stretch. But I mean, that'll just be for us to see, and we'll be back here next Wednesday after the TCU game to talk about whatever happens in that one.
Yes.
So for colleague for the post game, Ryan Breeden and Chris Becker, we'll see you guys next Wednesday after Oklahoma State TCU.